For this lesson, we're going to define pattern and also go to the preset managers, and we're able to save them. So the folder, the texture folder, I have some textures. I'm going to select the brick texture JPEG. I'm going to hold down the command key so I can just pick exact ones that I want to open in Photoshop. The brick, the slate, the Spanish tile, and the stick. The rest you can do as well on your own. I'm going to right click, open with Photoshop. Now all the files open individually as a tab, but you can change that if you go to the Photoshop window menu on top and go to Arrange. There is different ways of viewing everything if you'd like. There's a 4-up, and that will let you view everything if you need to see it all at once, but we don't need to see it all at once. So we are going to go back to Windows Arrange and consolidate all to tabs. Consolidate all to tabs. Let's start with the brick. The only tool, or more or less, what we need to do is make a selection. The first selection I'm going to do is, I'm only zooming in so you can see the details, is I'm going to probably select just a couple of the bricks. I have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I guess 6. Now this is going to be one repeat, which means that when I go into the pattern brush, this, only with here, is going to repeat. So you'll see this from top to bottom, side to side, as a pattern. Or we can say texture. Once you make a selection, you go to Edit, Define Pattern. Now we're going to name that pattern. Let's name it Brick Large. I'm going to click OK. When it's a small selection of something, small, it's going to be a larger pattern because it's only these bricks being repeated over and over. I'm going to zoom out. Now we're going to make a larger selection. It varies, it's up to you, but the more you select something within your selection, the more of it is going to be for that one repeat. So instead of having just 5 bricks, I'm going to have all of this as one repeat. Edit, Define Pattern, Brick Large, and hit OK. Now that's all I needed from that JPEG file, so I'm going to close it. I don't need to save it. There was no changes needed to be saved. Now the wood texture, again, I'm zooming in. I'm going just to make one selection from here to here, or just here to here. From here to here is one wood beam. Edit, Define Pattern. Wood Large. Now I can select 3 beams. So instead of just one, now I have 3 beams. Or let's have that pattern 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 beams as one repeat. Define Pattern. Wood Small. So all of these will be in that one repeat. Zoom out, and we've taken care of the vertical wood direction. Go to Image, scroll down to Image Rotation, and go to 90 degrees clockwise or counter. We're just needing to go 90 degrees because we want to get a horizontal direction. Again, I'm just going to select one wood beam, define pattern, and call it Wood Horizontal Large. A small selection means it's going to be a larger pattern, and the direction is horizontal. Again, 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 wood beams going horizontal. I'm going to go to Edit, Define Pattern, and call this wood horizontal. Small. And I'm going to finish with that. And you would continue with all of these. We have stick, Spanish, and slate. Let's take a look at the Spanish tile. This is almost a repeat anyways, so we want to select below this curve and then select the curve here. So this is going to repeat, almost pretty much makes it look like what's happening already. Edit, Define Pattern, and I'm going to call that Tile Large. If I want to have a smaller tile as a pattern, again, I'm going to make a selection where it's right below those when they come together. And then I'm going to end right here. And we're going to go to the Edit menu again. Go down to Define Pattern and call that Tile Small. It will vary. It all depends on the actual file size. You see me zooming in, but it really all depends on the actual file size. So you will have to come back and make new pattern, but you know how to do that by going to Making a Selection, going to Edit, and Define Pattern. Let's take a look at the actual patterns that we've done already. When you've completed of all the patterns and textures that you want to do that you created by going exactly what we just did, let's take a look. Click here, go right below the clone stamp and click on Pattern Stamp tool. Now right up here is going to show you all of the ones that we've done. Now I have additional ones that I've just created beforehand, so you see a lot more. This is a preset. Here to here is going to be all the default. This is an every time you open up Photoshop, all of these are already there. From here to here is what I created. Once you've made your patterns and name them, it's very important, right here at the gear, you want to be able to look at them maybe at list view, and you're able to see them just the way you named them. Now, this means that they're going to be saved on my personal computer, but if you go to a computer that doesn't always have these and you want to take your patterns with you, we need to save them. So again, we're back. There's that pattern stamp tool. We go to this window, we click on the gear, and we need to go to Preset Manager. Preset Manager. And when you go to Preset Manager, you can also change the view. If you're not familiar how everything looks like this, you can still go to, there's another little gear, and then you can go to List. Okay? And you can go back and say you want small thumbnail. Now I'm going to select, that's the one we just did earlier, and I'm going to select from all the way to here. I'm going to hold down, I select one of them, I hold down the shift key, and then I click on the last one. That will grab all of that. If you want to independently grab certain things, you click, hold down the command key, and you're able to toggle in between. But if you want to do a range of a selection, you just click on one, hold down the shift key, and click on the last of your range. Now we say Save Set. When you save the set, it automatically comes up as an untitled pattern .pat. That is the preset pattern for Photoshop. That's how Photoshop will read it. But we're not going to save that in there because you want to take this with you. So ideally you want to put this in your drive or somewhere where you have access to it. I'm going to call this textures. And then I'm going to save. And then say done. Now I reset Photoshop so they are no longer there. As if you were at a brand new computer with Photoshop that's never had the textures or patterns that you've created. So you would still need to go to your pattern stamp tool, access here, right where the gear is, click on the gear, go to load patterns. Then I saved mine on the desktop, but as you can see, it's that file that we named .pat, and then you open it, and then they have loaded. So that only saves what you just create at that time. So today, if I decide to create more textures or different textures, you will still have to go to Preset Manager, make your selection, and save it. For example, I'm at the plaster texture. I'm going to make a selection, edit menu to define pattern, and call that plaster large. Then I'm going to make a large selection, and then I'm going to edit, define pattern, plaster small. Keep in mind that all of these patterns will have an edge. They're not going to be seamless. So now if I go back here, remember the texture.pat file that we saved on the desktop, that's only containing the brick, the wood, and the Spanish tile. I just created this today. So you still would have to go into the gears, go to Preset Manager, select your old patterns that you've already done plus the new ones, and then save, and then you can easily just rename the same name. I'm just going to replace it, and then it's going to have the most updated, newer patterns. I also want to share with you that you can also use Photoshop has additional patterns that they've already created for you. So again, we're going back here, open up the gear. Let's go click on the rock patterns. Now right here it says, do you want to replace your current one? Well, we don't want to take away the ones we just created. We just want to add to them. So we're going to click on append, and that adds to your current pattern selection. Let's click on the gear one more time. Let's go to the nature pattern. Again, we want to not replace, we want to append, and that adds. So those are usually always going to be here, part of Photoshop. Not all Photoshop versions has that, but most. But the ones you personally create will always be with you, as long as you save your actual file wherever you need to save it. I like to keep my pattern textures that are plugins or presets for Photoshop in the same folder where I'm grabbing the original source. And that is all we need to do with defining the patterns and be able to save them.